All right, so we're recording now. So thank you so much for being here today as we celebrate the 1 year celebration anniversary birthday of the Sisterhood of Limitless Living podcast. Today we have Dawn and Daana here of Myelin and Melanin podcast, an MS podcast. Well, it's not necessarily an MS podcast. It just happens to be we both live with MS, right? So thank you for joining us today. Tell us a bit more about yourselves, about the podcast, and yeah, let's get the party going.
Party on.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Really excited to be here. Yeah, well, I'm Daana. I was diagnosed with MS in 2004. I was 23 going on 24. My mom also has MS. So I have a pretty, my story is a little bit different than, I don't want to say most people because, well, whatever, it's getting too far into things. But yeah, my mom also has MS. So when I was diagnosed, MS wasn't something that was brand new to me. I knew what MS was. So that kind of shaped my reality with the disease. So yeah.
I was diagnosed at 25 in 2000 with multiple sclerosis. No one in my family has MS, except we think my mom's sister, my aunt, we think she may have a case of CIS, which is clinically isolated syndrome, because she had all of the same or very similar symptoms like I had. And then she had like one major exacerbation and then nothing after that.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't really sure, but my MS has certainly been persistent, and I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting, and like I said, in 2000. And yeah, and just been living with it. It's been a journey, I must say, ups and downs.
Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
How have you been lately?
I have lately been feeling pretty good, very strong. I feel healthy, and I'm so grateful because it could be a lot different. It could look a lot different. I'm reminded every day that I have a chronic illness, a chronic autoimmune illness. But I'm not in a place where I'm struggling like I was a year ago. So whatever medication, whatever I've been doing, whatever my doctor is like prescribed, and everything that I follow that she tells me to, it's working, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's so good that you can have a doctor that you can trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Daana, how are you doing? I heard that you recently had a birthday.
Yes, my birthday was yesterday. I turned 40.
Happy
Which is-
birthday.
Thank you. It's one of those like big milestone birthdays, and it's crazy that I had to celebrate it in a global pandemic.
Yeah, right?
It's just, we're living in an alternate reality. So yes, yesterday was my birthday. Thank you very much for the birthday wishes. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, no complaints really. I am past due for my Ocrevus treatment. So Ocrevus is the disease modifying therapy that I take for my MS. And I was supposed to have it in March, but with everything going on in the world, that wasn't really a great idea. Ocrevus is a immunosuppressant drug. So, with everything that's going on, that kind of complicates everything. So I am scheduled to have another dose of that in June. So yeah, I'll be happy to get that going again because, when you're off of your DMT, like, you're taking a calculated risk. So do I want to go out there and, expose myself to COVID and all of that, or do I want to stay compliant? So take those, then yeah. But all in all, I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. Good to hear that we're all managing during this season.
Yeah.
Uncertain season.
I have to tell a quick story.
Yes.
So I get blood work drawn every month, And because I took a disease modifying therapy called Limtrada, which is where Daana and I met in a Limtrada Facebook group.
Oh.
And so they monitor me every month, and they monitor you for 5 years after your last infusion. So Dana's is done now, but I'm still in the midst of it. I think I'm in year 3. So one of the nurses at my neurologist's office said, "Hey, your hemoglobin's low. You got, you have really bad anemia. I think you should go see a hematologist." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So, I mean, not cool, but
Right.
because it's kind of like a burden to see another, specialist or whatever. But anyway, it's not a burden. You just do what you got to do. So I have a hematologist as part of my multidisciplinary team. So I went in yesterday just for like a routine checkup, because she was like, "All right, we're going to either give you an iron infusion or give you ferrous sulfate to boost your iron." And I was just like, okay, I really didn't want to sit and take iron. I'd rather just take the liquid iron that they give me and be done with it. Anyway, to make a long story short, good news, the taking the iron that she gave me orally, it boosted my numbers. And so I'm kind of like back up to a normal level. But prior to seeing the physician, I walked in and everything is like it's so formal and it's so sterile, and it made me feel so comfortable because, as you all know, having some sort of autoimmune challenge, it's like, it's kind of scary in these times, with everything being kind of germy and like a major virus that is, killing a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I told Daana, I said, "Wow, this is not the same anymore. It's like I can see that everything is different. Like they even like have things written, don't touch this, don't touch that pen, it's sterilized, and then they have the plexiglass, so you can't really talk to people anymore, there's like a barrier. And then they took my temperature twice, and I was like, okay,
Wow.
like the new norm here. This is the new
Right.
norm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gone into the doctor's office yet.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go in July, but I might actually move that schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Daana, you had Limtrada before Ocrevus?
Yeah, I had Lemtrada. My final infusion was in 2016. But after Lemtrada, I ended up having a relapse. In an MRI, it showed that there was another lesion. So clearly Lemtrada wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So after that relapse, I was given the option to have another round of Lemtrada or to switch to Ocrevus. And I switched to Ocrevus, which they were, because I was very bitter about the fact that, I mean, Lemtrada, number one, and Dawn can attest to it, it's a very intense process, taking the drug and all of the, prep work. I mean, for lack of a better term, all of the prep drugs and everything, it's very intense. So the fact that I went through all that and then ended up having a relapse, another lesion and whatever, I was very bitter about that. So I decided to go with Ocrevus. And the neurologist, they were pretty happy that I chose to do that, because they said, in all honesty, if Ocrevus was an option before I started Lemtrada, they probably would have opted for Ocrevus. So I started Ocrevus in December of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Are you RR MS, or are you both
Yeah.
RR?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just curious.
Yep.
Yeah, so tell us about your podcast. Tell us about your recent stories, the recent people that you've interviewed. I know I was on your podcast recently and I had a great time meeting the ladies. Tell us about some of the topics and all the things you've been learning lately.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say just some background information. So we're in season 3 of the podcast. We started the podcast, what was that? January 2019. Yeah. So this is our 3rd season of the podcast. But we recently started a series. It's called That Part, Intimacy and MS. And we talk about intimacy and MS. It's a topic that isn't always talked about. People tend to shy away from that topic. And as you mentioned, April, you were in layer 2 of that episode in our round table. So yeah, so yeah, Dawn, if you want to talk a little bit more about what it is.
We've interviewed like you said, April, starting the series off with topics about self-love, self-acceptance. Are you really able to are you fully capable of accepting love from another if you haven't loved yourself first, or acknowledge that, hey, I need to really look within and love all of me, every part of me, before sharing that with another, and before being intimate, physically or emotionally intimate with another.
Yeah, I love that topic.
Those are like super, super important points before moving forward with a partner. And I think we have had an amazing time. We've had so much fun just speaking with other people who have MS, speaking with various medical professionals. Like we have an OT, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist. We've spoken with two leading neurologists, Dr. Boster, Dr. Mitzi Williams, Dr. Gretchen Howley, Audra Indermuley, which is the OT, and Dr. Gretchen is the PT. And like I said, everyone who's been on has an important role. Everybody has a story that is incredible, and we're so grateful that people are adding to this topic and adding to the pot of talking about intimacy, because this is something that quite often doctors will overlook, not because of they're intentionally trying to shy away from it, but it's difficult to approach that topic with people. And a lot of times we don't know how to bring it up to our physicians.
Yes.
Or, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're learning a lot.
Yes, definitely. And it's been nice. We've talking to, again, some leading medical professionals in this field, but it's also been nice talking with other folks who have MS, and we're just trying to live our lives. And it's nice to get everyone's perspective. And I think it's important, not only for people with MS to listen to, what the doctors and therapists and all that, their perspectives, but I think that this will be really important for medical professionals to listen to. You need to know what we're thinking. You need to know what we face, because these are some of the things that we might not want to talk about, in our sessions with you. So maybe you need to bring it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what the beauty of the topic, Daana and I were just talking about this, is that it's not just a one and done. Like, it's not just a one night stand. If we could kind of stick with that series or that theme. It is something that is an ongoing process, because as consenting adults, this is something that should be addressed. We are not asexual. We are not, whether it's something emotional or physical. Like, we are beings in this world, and we want to have a good quality of life, and that is just a part of life as an adult, responsible adult, making responsible adult decisions. And it's important to talk about it and how we adjust and not recreate the past.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's so interesting, because like the second you're born, it's like, what's the first thing they're looking at when you come out? All right. Where are you coming out from?
Right. Exactly. And what are you? What gender are you? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, those are the first things that people think about. Yeah.
So tell us some of the things that you've learned along the way from these talks, some of the topics that have come up most recently, the other layers.
I would say the biggest takeaway, I think, for me in the series is that you should not recreate the past. You shouldn't attempt to recreate the past. MS is a chronic progressive disease, meaning you're going to change throughout your disease course. Things are going to change, and you should, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, yeah, it just is what it is. That being said, down the line, as you progress in your disease, there are going to be changes to your body, and you may not be able to do the things that you used to do. So not like, it's pointless just, ruminating on, oh my God, I, used to be able to do this. I can't do it anymore. My life is over. No, you've got to, keep an open mind, communicate, be open with your partners, or whomever, and adapt, period.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say my biggest takeaway would be that I am enough and we are enough. We
Right.
have to recognize that. And that has been an incredible journey for me during this process. I've grown a lot. I feel like I'm not even the same person
Wow.
that started in January with season 3. I am a completely different person. I think I'm a lot more comfortable, a lot more open, a lot more communicative. And knowing that I am enough, it's opened up my communication pattern with my partner. And he and I seem to be on the same page. I'm not afraid anymore, because I think I was afraid. I know I was. I was afraid to talk about any of it, and shied away from the topic, almost becoming like, I don't know, I guess scared, nervous, and just thinking that I wasn't good enough, or that maybe he should go get a young woman that could flip from the chandeliers or run a marathon or something. I don't know, but it's okay where I am. And that is what my takeaway has been.
Yes, you are enough, period.
I
Yes.
love it.
Yep.
Wow. I love this. I love this journey of just knowing more about yourself. And it is related to like that moment of birth and that identity and that whole like essence of who the heck we are from the very beginning of approaching or landing on earth as our own individual selves. It's all
And
gendered,
yeah,
sex-based.
definitely. And I think, one of the things that came out in one of our sex therapy roundtables that we had, I think, MS does not change who you are. I mean,
Right.
MS changes so much, as it relates to ability and, all of those things, but ultimately does not change who you are as a person. So if you were a very sexual person before you were diagnosed with MS, that doesn't change. The things that you might have, the way that you were able to express yourself sexually maybe has changed. But you are still you. And it's a matter of, making changes and adaptations and not being able to communicate your need to, switch things up if need be. And so I
Yep.
think that's a big way too, just because you have, any disease, not even just MS, like limitations doesn't change who you are as a person. And I think that people need to remember that.
Right.
Yeah, such an important topic that we rarely see, disability and sex, right? It's not
Mhm.
something that you see very often.
Yes,
So, yeah. How'd
definitely.
you come up with this topic?
We had been, I would say a year ago, we had been talking about just kind of dabbling in the area of like, let's talk about intimacy, but not intimacy, with unbridled passion, throwing your clothes off intimacy, not like that, but like really let's get into it, because this is so much deeper for people who have a chronic illness. It's a lot. There are a lot of layers, which is why we labeled our podcast that
Yeah.
part, layer 1, layer to layer 10 and ongoing, really. And so through those conversations from last year, we just kind of put it all together like a puzzle and everything that we came up with each time we would discuss it, it just all seemed to fit. And really, this was, like we said, it doesn't feel like work. It's been a labor of love, and noticing how everything that we did discuss and research, everything fit together. You know, Daana found this wonderful PDF file from a sex therapist, that specifically talked about intimacy and sex with MS, and brought up all different types of scenarios and how to better communicate, tools that you can use with your partner, or partners, or whatever you choose, again, with consenting adults. And so once we got all the pieces of the puzzle together, it just seemed to flow, and it's continuing to flow.
Yeah.
So if Daana wants to add
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
That just kind of took on a life of its own. And I think that the reception is just amazing. People are really eating this up. Not only people with MS or otherwise, like the doctors and medical professionals have been really excited to talk with us about this. And that was so surprising. Like, you know, we were like kind of cautious. You know, there's certain doctors who, you know, we know that we have, you know, personal rapport with, who we knew that would be down to have conversations like these. But it's kind of tricky because you don't know like how comfortable people are with these topics.
Yeah.
But it really has been amazing how open everybody has been, because I think that like sex is sometimes like the elephant in the room. Like, oh, we shouldn't talk about that. No, we have to talk about it. Like, that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great topic. And yeah, I've got to listen to some of the other episodes. I've met some great women in the conversations, met you, and yeah, want to listen to the other episodes as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's just, I think it's like, it's a confidence booster in a way. I that's what I felt. And just hearing other people's stories, I feel like, wow, I'm not alone.
Yep, exactly.
You know, other people have felt this shyness. They felt the reluctance to bring it up to their therapist or their neurologist.
Yep.
You know, and it feels good to be part of a community that will discuss this openly, and we are creating that safe space, and I love that. I really, really do.
It is
For
powerful.
a safe, respectable space for all of us, for men and women.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that, providing the safe space. We're not alone in these topics, these fears, these concerns, these insecurities, these issues.
Yeah.
Bringing those out there is
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah. All right.
So
Well,
this is your 1-year anniversary, April?
it is. Yes, we started last May 2019 with the podcast, The Sisterhood of Limitless Living. We've interviewed people from throughout the entire, well, I wouldn't say every disease, autoimmune disease, there's so many, but we've talked about, you know, very rare diseases like PSC. And then we've talked about lupus, MS. We've talked about polycystic ovarian syndrome, a variety of different conditions, fibromyalgia.
Wow.
And yeah, just people sharing their stories, similar to what you mentioned here. People are able to, first of all, connect and realize they're not alone in their struggles. And then also to hear, and sometimes for the first time, be able to share their experiences with their autoimmune journey. Sometimes we have people who come on and they're like, you know, I've never shared my experience with anyone. I've never talked about this journey to diagnosis. So it's very powerful to be able to, you know, talk about that and the importance of self-advocacy. Yeah, so we bring up all these different themes.
Yeah, I find it to be therapeutic. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, and I mean, it's therapeutic for me. I hope it's therapeutic for everyone else as well. And just being able to share those stories is powerful, in my opinion.
Right.
Make you feel seen, because so often you feel invisible. Like,
right.
You know, and you feel alone, like, am I the only person who experiences these things?
Right.
But yeah, I think talking about it really makes you feel seen and a part of the world. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then there's so many different ways people process disability and autoimmune disease and these challenges. And I needed a space where I could meet people with a certain type of perspective, certain way of living through it, getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I first went to my first support group, it was pretty bad. It was like I had never met anyone with my diagnosis, and they
Mm-hmm.
were promising me all this stuff was going to happen. You know, you're going to like lose complete control of your bodily functions, I guarantee it. And you know, they were telling me all this stuff, and I left feeling worse than I
Yeah.
walked in, because I had more questions and more fears and more doubts after I left. And you know, I needed a space where I could meet people who were like, you know what, these are challenges, you may or you may not face them, but this is how you get through them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I built this group, the Sisterhood of Limitless Living, so that we can connect with people. And to my surprise, and to, you know, I'm so glad, because I did meet these people, and we do exist. We do have a powerful attitude. This is not going to get us. You know, this may not be the worst thing that ever happens to us, and we're going to
Right.
be able to get through the challenges the best way we can.
Right.
Yes.
I think it's important when there are these support groups, whether it's a support group for lupus or fibromyalgia or MS, whatever it is. I think it's important to, like you said, leave without feeling nervous and like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that will happen to me. I think it's important to be empowered, like, and maybe that is something that, you know, we can discuss in the future. But like, how do you help others become empowered when they're leaving? So a lot of people are just so terrified. Well, I
Yeah.
know, and like I said, in my family, I had not experienced anything like MS, and we didn't have autoimmune illnesses in our family. Like I said, my aunt maybe had one episode, but she was never formally diagnosed. I don't know. I left a support group terrified, and I was
Yes.
thinking,
Thank
this is
you.
like Parkinson's. I didn't know,
That's what I'm
you know.
talking about. Yeah.
And it's easy to slip into denial, which is where Dana and I talk about this all the time on our podcast, because we were in denial for over a
Exactly.
decade,
Yeah.
well over a decade.
Yeah.
Not until we started the podcast is when we really began to feel super confident and comfortable in where we are in our lives, and no, this is not the worst thing that can happen and has happened.
Right.
And
Yeah. I
they,
think like worse things may have happened to me before, but
yeah, and that there is shouldn't be any shame in it.
Right.
It is what it is. You should not be ashamed. And for so long, it was such, for me personally, a
Yeah.
thing of shame. Like, I didn't want to be that girl who was sick.
with the
Um,
label. Yeah.
exactly, because people make up their own narratives about what it means to have whatever diagnosis. And it's like, no. And I think that's also an area of empowerment, like being able to tell your own story. You shape the narrative. Don't let people shape it for you, because people will. If you're silent and don't say anything, people are going to make their own assumptions. And yeah,
Right. Yeah. So all of that is a process. Yeah, it's like
definitely.
now I share with certain people and not others, because it's,
Mhm.
you know, sometimes it's exhausting to explain
Definitely.
every time. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because everybody has advice. Oh, eat this. Oh, don't eat that. Exercise between the hours of 2 and 4, and you'll get the optimum, you know, benefits or something. You know, it's like, come on. Let me
Right.
just work on this myself.
Yeah.
Let me do it myself. I
Yeah.
don't need the unsolicited advice right now. I know, and I don't need the doom and gloom. Oh, did you know Aunt Sally's third cousin had this, and this happened to her, and it's just like,
Therefore, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why the podcast got started, just because, like, you know, we don't have to believe those stories. I mean, we can believe that they happened out there, that it's out there, but we don't have to believe and accept them for ourselves. We're not there. We're not that person.
Right.
Definitely.
I'd rather take ownership of the positive aspects, which is meeting you, of course, connecting with Daana, who was my partner in crime, and meeting other people who share the same thought patterns and just like wanting to help the community and wanting to learn medically, what is this all about? And emotionally, possibly spiritually, like all of those pieces.
Yeah.
I think that's important, like owning that versus the negative parts to having a chronic illness.
Yeah.
And two, I think to add to that, not being afraid to share the ugly parts, because this is an ugly disease. It is. And one of my criticisms is that I think a lot of people want to sanitize the disease. Oh, it's not that bad, whatever. And sure, you don't want people to be scared and terrified. However, there are some pretty nasty things that happen with this disease. And that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, but there are things that happen. And I never would have done this, 10 years ago, but I'm ready now. And I'll share and I have shared in the podcast, I'll share the nasty things that happen. You're not alone. It happened. It wasn't the end of the world. I can laugh about it now, but you're not alone if that happens to you. And you just move on, and you just move on. So, again, it's, kind of a balance. You don't want to terrify people, but at the same time, you don't want to give people false expectations.
True.
Because, you never know. It's an unpredictable disease, period. And so you have to be prepared for anything.
That's true.
And I think that's important for people to understand.
I agree. Yeah, there's a couple of episodes we've had in the past with the Sisterhood of Limitless Living where we talk about, how to get through difficult times. And, at the beginning of these topics, I'll say something like, we don't necessarily dwell in problems, but we're not afraid to talk about the problems. We're not afraid to address the problems. We're not scared of there's this quote out there, something like, we're not scared of the trouble, but we don't cause the trouble. But basically we're not scared of the trouble, but we also, move beyond the trouble as well. So we'll work through it. We'll get through the problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're not afraid. For the most part.
Right. Yeah. It's okay to be scared because it's scary, but we don't have to live in that fear.
Exactly. Right. So that is what's been going on here with the podcast. And thank you so much for being part of the journey. Thank you so much for connecting and celebrating with us today. And
Thank you.
I think this is going to be a separate episode on its own. We've got our, recording here. We've got our video here. And we can share this as its own standalone episode, I think, if that's okay with you.
And can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that this pandemic has been incredibly tragic for many, many people and for the world, but it's also brought us closer in a way. You know what I mean? Like these Zoom calls, the constant communication, like I love that. I really do. Even though there is a physical distance, I don't know if I feel so distant from my tribe. And I feel like you're a part of the tribe. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel that. I feel like we have gained a better understanding and appreciation for one another. At least this is from my opinion, and my vantage point. And I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I know. I was just talking to a friend in Ukraine yesterday, and it was like nothing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So connected now. Yeah, I appreciate it as well. So it's so good to connect with you both again. And I'm just really glad that we're able to share your podcast and your experiences out there in the sisterhood as well in our podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let's stay in touch, and we'll continue to talk more about these topics of identity and self-efficacy, self-advocacy, all of it.
And sex.
And sex.
And sex. Okay. That's right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. And until next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
All right.
Okay.